meeting of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board will please come to order. And welcome to the guests who are out there today. The first item on the agenda is the agenda approval. Does it meet everybody's needs?
No. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Anybody have any comments on those?
I'll just make a note that that was the May meeting because you guys didn't have a quorum last month.
Correct. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes or change them?
Move approval.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Susanna, did you
Okay.
second?
Huh?
Okay, I was just getting the second. I missed the second, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay, the minutes were approved. Okay, the next item on the agenda is programs and facilities update. Kristen?
Yes, sir. The court repair in Bridgeview Park is complete. It was completed right before the June meeting that we did not hold. The contractor still has to come back and do some fence work for us. Those parts are on delay, and that's why he could not do that while he was here. And I checked with him this morning. They are still on delay. So he's got several projects and cannot get fence pieces right now for those, but he will be back to do fence repair. The concerts are having a large turnout, and the patrons seem very happy to be back this year. The tie-dye program's also going well. We've had that for 3 weeks. 1 week we did get cut short due to rain. That was the second week, but the numbers are still good. We did a call for volunteers, which was successful because you guys are minus some seats on the board. We were able to get some community volunteers that have helped, and we appreciate that. My costs are increasing, or the town's costs are increasing for the supplies that we're having to buy. I've noticed increases in different things, so we may have to evaluate the fee for that program in the future, starting when we start back up next June. As far as other facilities, there's been a sign posted at Halstead Park. It's been there for about a month now with the hours for the park, so that folks know that park hours are basically the daytime hours right before sunrise to right after sunset, and everybody in the neighborhood seems to be happy that that has occurred. I've gotten some good feedback on that. The police are monitoring that after hours. And that is what I had for programs and facilities, other than the Beach Rangers program seems to be going well with positive response to the promotional items that we're handing out.
Okay. Any questions for Kristen?
I have one more thing, I'm sorry. I just finished it before I walked in. Quick look at numbers through the end of yesterday, and I'll recheck this because I did finish right before I came in, but it looks like despite COVID, we still, since we started programs back in, we did run yoga and Tai Chi out of the pavilion, but it looks like we were still able to serve 4,500 people this year with programs. That counts concerts and tie-dye.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Christie,
Yes.
are you gonna discuss when are we gonna take on our new duties, I guess, or are we going to do that? It occurred at one of the,
If we can wait till the next month's meeting to
Okay.
talk about that, I think there'll be some clarifying that possibly is occurring at the July meeting. I just need to coordinate some more
Okay.
with Heather, so, the July meeting is a Board of Commissioners, so if we can wait and talk about that next month.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And those that are interested in coming on will be on the next meeting or not?
Their interviews are supposed to occur for new board members at the July meeting of the Board of Commissioners.
And how many How many?
And if you're interested in applying, the clerk says that you should have your application in by next Friday.
How many applications do we have so far for how many positions?
I know that we have 3 open positions. I don't know how many applications we have right now.
Actually 4, well, mine,
If you'll have to renew, yeah,
Yeah, I'd like
if
to
you're
renew.
interested.
yes, please.
All right. Did Mike arrive?
He did arrive, so
Okay.
we can move to
Mike.
his update.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the master plan update from Mike Norris. If we go.
Mike, if you would like to come up to the podium, I have the presentation loaded. Okay,
We can work with that.
okay, I can see if I can, if you wanna tell us what the tweak is, if you wanna go through, okay, if you wanna go through this one before I take everything down in the system in there, and then we can upload that one.
Just talk about the
Okay. And the pointer is on the podium. If you will point it towards this TV, you'll be good to go.
Okay, great.
Point at anything, huh?
Good
How
afternoon.
you doing?
How are you? Okay. Excited to be here to talk with you about recreation. I'm Mike Norris with McGill, and we have worked with a variety of folks over the course of this planning phase of recreation on the Parks and Rec Master Plan update. And I'm really excited to hear your comments, some of your thoughts and ideas, some things that you may think we need to add, embellish, elaborate on some of the recommendations and just some of the general comments. But wanted to let you know, Christy's been fabulous to work with, very helpful throughout the entire process, and very engaging. What we're going to be doing today is just presenting you, and I'll try to stay in front of this microphone. I tend to walk away from things, so but this will keep me in check. But what I want to do is give you a really good overview. I want to hit the highlights of the plan that I feel like are maybe most important to you to understand the process, how we went through the different reiterations of the planning concepts that we have. Back up here and hit this slide. So the agenda you have in front of you is fairly straightforward. Again, hitting those survey results, the public meetings that we had, the focus group interviews. We had a lot of good public engagement throughout this process, which is really, in my mind, essential to having a good plan that can meet the needs of the community for the future, taking those and with the recommendations. So on the next slide, this again is just elaborating the sections of the plan. Primarily, though, this is going to focus on the demographics. That's who we are as a community. Holden Beach, a coastal community that fluctuates through seasonal population. It's a lot different now than it was back in February. We looked at this plan as taking the pandemic out of the realm, because we can't plan around that scenario. We don't want to. We want to look at what we're going to be like in the future. The needs assessment, that is, what are folks telling us? Assessing the community, what homeowners are saying versus visitors, because they have different needs and different desires for recreation when we come to the island. We benchmark ourselves, compare ourselves to other communities, and then from that we develop our recommendations. What do we want to do? And then how do we do that? The opinions and costs are always important. So one of the things that I wanted to touch on was our population. Right now, we're around a little over 1,100 residents on the island. 10 years from now, less than 10 years from now, we're going to grow more than 200. That impacts us, but According to the Council of Governments, our Cape Fear Council of Governments, I have a statistic here that says the estimated peak seasonal population is 20,000 plus. That's really, I mean, we can talk about our population of 1,100, but it really doesn't reflect the actual number of users on the island using recreation, because it's much more. Our existing facilities, you can see the map up there. Those circles you see there are service areas. And service areas kind of give us an idea of what's reasonable for a service area. Good example is a municipal fire station. We think about fire stations located strategically throughout a community so that we can serve those areas, right? And so there's different size of circles there, and those are different types of parks. The two larger circles, those are community parks. That's Jordan Boulevard and in the park here behind us. Those are really important parks to us. They are bigger parks. And then we have smaller parks, mini parks and neighborhood parks that we want to think about as well, because they impact the recreation, and are further west also, so it adds for distribution to our service areas for the communities. And moving on to the next slide. So one of the things that we put a lot of effort into, and I hope some of you, I'm sure most of us took the survey, but we also had a variety of different methods of engaging the community. We had our survey, community-wide survey. We had a great response from that. We'll go into that. But we also had drop-in meetings that were well attended. We had one here at our park on April 7th. We wanted to engage when we knew people would be out and about. So we picked Easter weekend. So Good Friday, we had an event on April 2nd at Bridgeview Park. Had a lot of, it was the Easter egg drop, actually. We were there all day. Had a lot of really good input from the public. It's going to be interesting. The 2 different days, I had a lot of different input from the different users, because the second day we went to the beach access point. So as you can imagine, we had a lot of park visitors there, folks who may not necessarily be property owners or homeowners, and they had a different take on what's important to them. And I'll show you some of the things that we did there. But this was great because, yes, ma'am.
No disrespect at all, Mike, but we all have looked at this plan page by page.
Okay.
So, I mean, for time's sake.
Well, let's go through this.
And we were all engaged in all of these activities through this committee, so I know that we've got some folks that may not be privy.
I haven't read it page
Page by page.
Okay, you want this
Well,
one.
that's why I came.
Okay.
To get a
Okay.
Well, I'm going to hit the,
That's
I
fine.
appreciate you letting me know. I do want to hit some of these highlights. And I'll take that into account. The general comments we got: more beach access points, additional parking, restroom facilities was mentioned a lot. Desire for more dog parks, a facility for that, particularly when we had one before and now there's not one, so folks want to know what's happening. Pickleball, tennis courts, additional water access locations, canoe, kayaking, those types of things are always popular in coastal communities, and more trails. Every park plan we've done, the top 3 desires are park trails. So this preference survey was used, visual preference survey was used for our public engagement. We had roughly 20 types of amenities, and people could come up and place, I think we gave them 3 or 4 dots they could place on the amenities that they felt like were most appropriate for them and their family. Now, we felt like most of these amenities would be appropriate for Holden Beach, so we didn't pick things that wouldn't fit in with our community. But what was interesting is, and this, my slide presentation's skipping. These are we color-coded these. So we had residents and property owners that were differentiated from the visitors. So what we had, we wanted to list the top 7 preferences that were chosen from the property owners. One was canoe kayak launch, second was trails, followed by a bike path, fishing dock, accessible play features, ranked 5th out of the top 5. Then 6 was dog park, followed by the boardwalk. So that was our top 7. And I'll come back, what's going to be interesting here as we look at the next slide. And this was the visitors. So we did the top 5. I usually like to do the top 5, kind of like David Letterman did on the top 10, for those of you who like the late night shows. But the top 5 differed a little bit from the property owners and homeowners. We had natural surface trails, restroom buildings, fishing dock, canoe kayak launch, and dog park. They differed a little bit, but the top 7 from both visitors and the homeowners were all the same. So I wanted to include that 7 there so you could see those were the 7 out of that 20 that all matched up with both visitors and property owners. I thought that was interesting. Let's hit some of the quick highlights here. We had 358 participants. We differentiated from full-time residents versus second, or not second homeowners, but property owners and second homeowners. That represents 609 individuals. Over 93% of the survey respondents were property owners. So I thought that was really good turnout for the survey. Next one, this is ranking our park facilities. Bridgeview Park, very good, excellent. This is really good. Next question, what improvements could be made? Top 5, canoe kayak launch, landscape, and security cameras. That was interesting. And picnicking and lighting, more lighting.
Hey, Mike,
Yes.
if there's a way to put a note in there, I know that's based on feedback from surveys, but there are security cameras in Bridgeview Park.
Right, yeah. And it's interesting that some of this is perception. So some things may be addressed, but, others may not be aware of it. So that may have come from one isolated issue there that may be addressed already, or someone may not be aware of. So we had a question there that talked about we had 32 choices of amenities they could use, and we picked out the top 10. Again, similar to the public engagement sessions, but jogging, walking trails, bike trails, nature trails, everyone wants more trails, right? Open space preservation, dog parks, fishing, canoe kayak launch, outdoor performance area, boat facilities, and fitness facilities. So again, in line, it was good that everything was matching. We didn't have any anomalies that were popping up throughout the public engagement. Programs are very important to our community. In ranking those, sometimes it's good just to have some feedback. What is most important from the programs that we're offering? Folks love concerts. I think Christy just mentioned the activity and the desire and demand. Folks want activities. Concerts are a very popular one. Festivals will continue to grow. Seasonal events, we're all interested in that. Performances, 5K run, not for me, but many others like it. And then our other things that are from 6 through 10, Tai Chi, social activities, senior social activities, multi-purpose open spaces, art classes, teen activities, and day camp rounded out the top 11. Well, there were 11 choices, and that's ranking all of them. Next slide. Great response, over 84% wanting to expand recreational opportunities. We also had focus group meetings, and that's basically picking different types of park users, recreation users. We've divided our groups, in this case, into residents, homeowners, general and retirees, and other recreation stakeholders. Just to tell you some of the major things that we got from that. Recreation is very important to the quality of life here. It's for not only residents, but also the visitors. The visitors, they're coming in, they want to have something to do. It's very important. Water access is critical. Let's not forget, the number one recreational amenity we have here is the beach. That's why folks are coming, so it's important to consider that. The activities enhancing our coastal amenities on the island. Accessibility is very important. We have a cross-section that has a very high percentage of seniors in our community, so it's important that we have access. Not to say that all do, but it's accessibility for everyone's important. Walking, biking, connectivity is important, not only to have trails, but having connected trails. And the dog park's being missed. We miss our dog park. But we want to expand our recreational opportunities. This is just some benchmarking. I'm not going to go into the detail. I know you've read this in depth, but this is based on state guidelines. This kind of tells us, how we match up with other communities. But we took that as a benchmark. But we primarily use the public engagement and through the public meetings, the stakeholder groups, and the survey to gauge what we wanted to do for proposals over the next 10 years. So I'm going to go over the highlights of the recommendations. You've you've read these and you know what they are, but I'm going to just hit these, go over these. Bridgeview Park, fantastic park, great attendance. It's probably our most well-attended park and widely used for visitors and residents. We want to install a fishing platform, wildlife observation deck. We need to add more shade, additional seating near the basketball court. Next one is Jordan Boulevard Pavilion. Some of this is just improving to what we need to. It works well, but we need to repay the parking area. Again, improve ADA accessibility. Sailfish Drive Park, beautiful park, but there's some things we want to do here to enhance that, but we don't want to lose what we like about the park either. That's important. We feel like providing an accessible canoe kayak launch would be a nice addition. Covered picnic area, picnic facilities. Educational signage, I think, is always important along our waterways. There's no restroom facilities here, and it's a challenge to do that. We feel like a waterless restroom facility would be an appropriate addition here. Folks that, they often determine whether or not they use a park facility, whether it has a comfort facility or not, and improve ADA accessibility. The 796 Ocean Boulevard. This is an opportunity we have. There are a number of different things that we could use this for. In looking at the community engagement, there was a strong desire for comfort facilities, a place to go to the restroom if I'm on the beach. We currently have limited opportunities there. This offers an opportunity for the town to have a facility that's built. You have equity in the building. It has that potential to be used as adaptive reuse for a community facility here. In addition to that, there is space available should you desire to go in that direction for community space, whether it's a classroom type of multipurpose. It does have currently issues with ADA accessibility. It's a multi-story facility, so that would have to be addressed. But there's parking there. There's a number of things it could meet the needs for a comfort facility. Continuing on, Halstead Park, every time I go there, there's people there. It seems like fishing's very popular. There does need to be some maintenance. It's got some wear on it. We feel like some repair needs are needed at the pier, the fishing platform. We're recommending installing a fish cleaning station. You say, well, why do we want to do that? Well, folks are doing that now there. So do we want to provide a facility for that? If they're going to continue to do, that's the question. And a canoe kayak launch might be a nice addition there. Educational signage again. I think there's some opportunity to evaluate the parking there to see if there might be a better way to have that. You got most folks park in the front there, and there's just a limited amount of spaces there. I think if you review and go at an angle parking, you might be able to tuck in a few more spaces there. But we'll want to go in and really check this. If we want to be ADA compliant, we need to do a code compliance review of the facility, make sure that we are meeting compliancy there. The Pocket Park there, again, really nice, small, quaint nano park there that is unique to its own. But again, we'd like to consider better ADA accessibility there. Revolving art sculpture seasonally, so you can have, an opportunity for folks to come and see something different there from time to time. The Holden Beach Fit Trail. Again, we've got some aged equipment out here. We feel like it's time to maybe rethink that and have some newer, more up-to-date equipment that could do different things, possibly get more use. Maybe things here that would be more accommodating to accessibility as well. The Holden bike route. We're proposing let's consider accessibility, but also wayfinding. One of the things we often lose sight of, if we live here and are on the island all the time, we know where everything is, but many times visitors don't. So having a good wayfinding plan for folks to know what's available and where it is something that's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but we're oftentimes missing. So we feel like that might be a good plan that can be implemented over a period of time, not only for bike routes, but also parks, parking, and a variety of things. Existing park recommendations, again, access is really critical. Folks want to get to the beach, particularly if they're day trippers. They're just coming onto the island. They're probably going to want to go to the beach. We want to have good signage, where parking is, what's allowed, what's not allowed. High visibility crosswalks. The waterless restrooms, right here is an example of one up on the upper right. With the limited utilities that are available, we feel like the waterless restroom might be a good approach. It looks good, it's durable, and it's fairly maintenance friendly. We have a lot of right-of-ways within the town that are undeveloped. There's no street there. They're just basically vacant, if you will. We feel like that might be an opportunity where we could put some of those facilities there. This would allow accessibility, an opportunity to make that space and use it to its full potential. Future park recommendations. Scotch Bonnet Park is a park that we feel like it's town-owned property. It's large. You can do a number of things. It's also one of the things I like about this property is it's distributed on another part of the island. So when we talk about service area, we have the park facilities here. This adds another facility that can do a number of different things further west. So some of the things that we feel like might be appropriate, the dog park, again, that was in high demand. Surface trails, again, high on the survey. Canoe kayak launch, we're beside the waterway. Picnic, restroom facilities, seating, possibility for a disc golf course, something for a wide variety of park users. And of course, we'll need parking. Not everyone's going to be able to walk to this park, so we need to consider parking as well. We also feel like there's potential if the town has the opportunity for the Holden Beach Pier to pursue that. I feel like this is a unique location because it is adjacent to the beach. Very limited opportunities for that now, and will be even more limited in the future. So if we want to pursue recreation with a park facility close to the beach, this is a very appropriate location, very unique, could offer something that no other site could. And we talked a lot about, during this planning process, about access to the water. Those opportunities are becoming more and more limited, and they will continue to be that way. So take advantage of opportunities where we can. As I mentioned, the right-of-ways are, in many cases, are undeveloped. They're just there. They lead up to the intercoastal waterway, and we feel like this might be if we're talking about having access, let's have pathways going to that. You may have observation areas, or you could potentially put a canoe kayak launch there. So again, we want to take advantage of those opportunities where we can. The linear parks are a fancy word for a nice walkway that can connect destinations. When I say a nice walkways, when you turn linear parks into a wide paved pathway that can potentially have sculpture, maybe there's seating areas along this walkway, this strollway, if you will, they have the potential to be very, they turn into amenity itself. It's not just a sidewalk going from point A to point B. This is an experience, it's a park experience that can be multimodal, where you can not only walk, but you can potentially bike. There are some opportunities here that I feel like we need to pursue, and particularly up here at where we have a lot of civic spaces. We have Town Hall, we have Bridgeview, we have Jordan Park, Jordan Boulevard Pavilion, and public restrooms. If we look at this, they're often disconnected. We can walk there certainly right now, but we feel like there's an opportunity for having some type of strong pedestrian bicycle connection. We've got parking all over the place, which is good. We need parking, but develop a systematic method of connecting these destinations so that the public understands where I can go safely, where I can walk my kids, or where I can bike, and have this turned into some type of linear experience to where I can enjoy. Maybe there's signage, maybe there's the history of Holden Beach that you can allow visitors to learn about what we are and what we do. And it's also a good way of notifying residents of future things that can be happening, activities and events. A future linear park. This is likely a multi-phased approach, but there's opportunity to create a more nature park-esque type of walkway facility that would connect a number of streets. This is, if you see that bottom image there, that's traveling on the back side where there's some of it's town-owned, some of it's not, but we feel like that's an opportunity to think long range, to think big, to have some type of walkway that's more nature trail with a combination of soft surface trails and boardwalks that would provide connectivity. One of the reasons I like this is because we have a lot of pedestrians going up and down the street. This would be able to have a safe alternate where I could have that facility going, and also a unique experience as well. Dog parks. We evaluated, as I mentioned, Scotch Barnet, we are proposing a dog park there, but we also looked at other locations of town-owned land of where if that doesn't work out, what else is there? So we're showing a few different locations, and there's nothing to say that you need only one dog park. You may decide we're for the sake of everyone wants to be a walkable community, but if I live up on this part of the island, am I going to walk to Scotch Bonnet? If not, do we need to consider opportunities for smaller dog parks at different locations? So we're just showing a few locations here off Ocean Boulevard and Brunswick Avenue, and at the end of Scotch Bonnet is another location. And so the proposed service areas we're showing here are primarily right there at Scotch Bonnet, that proposed park. Again, that spreads out our service area. We're not proposing a lot of smaller parks. We feel like there's a great opportunity there at Scotch Bonnet for development. It's town-owned property. It's, which is half the challenge, right? Having land. Then the second half, most difficult challenge is to determine how to pay for it once you decide what to do. So, again, this meets at least at a minimum 10-year need, and addresses a lot of the elements and the desires for the community and the visitors. This summarizes the park facilities over a 10-year period. Again, this is in draft. This is I turned the wrong slide. I advanced too quickly. It's just a little over $6.8 million. However, this hasn't addressed priorities. We like to look at this over a 10-year period, as well as beyond 10 years. Some of this we may not wanting to be willing to commit to, but we at least need to understand the magnitude of cost and determine how to get there. With added facilities becomes, you add maintenance and staffing needs. So some of the staffing proposals we have with full-time positions add needed. When we add parks and facilities, we need to consider adding staffing. So full-time positions as we need it. Once we determine when things are going to be added, we can further describe or understand when staffing will be needed. But we do need to understand that when that time comes, we'll need to add staff. Yes, ma'am.
I think maybe, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but Christie is assistant town manager, and one of her responsibilities is Parks and Rec. So we don't have a full-time person devoted to Parks and Rec.
Right.
So I would say
She wears a lot of hats.
I mean,
Right.
she's got beachfront and a lot of other things now.
Right.
So I don't know what portion of her position we're currently, but that probably needs to be
Well, we could put half,
adjusted.
one half Parks and Recreation Director.
Whatever time she spends, I wouldn't know how to estimate that.
Right. That's true. We have her, if we were submitting a Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant, we would have her designated as a director, but you're right. That's not full-time capacity.
That would be nice.
She wishes it were her only job.
General recommendations, always accessibility. We need to, all our facilities need to be accessible. Connectivity. We want to have good design. We don't want to just put something together and just say, here it is. We want to think about how it's going to function, how it relates to other things. We also want to think about maintenance. What are our policies? Our existing facilities, again, improvements and maintenance. We don't want to build anything until we can maintain what we have. The future park expansions, I mentioned, the One U Community Park, accesses on the Intracoastal Waterway, the linear parks, and the dog parks. The recommendations, again, we need to think about tennis, volleyball, pickleball, picnic shelters, dog parks, fishing piers. Again, a lot of these we've included. Priorities, the pathways connecting Jordan Boulevard Pavilion, Bridgeview, add shades, add shading at Bridgeview. Update the parking areas where we can. Again, having good uniform parking. We have some areas that's just somewhat of a free-for-all. It works, but it could be better. Accessible connections, again. Canoe kayak launches where we can, but particularly at Sailfish. And Sailfish with covered parking areas, or excuse me, not covered picnic areas and gathering spaces, whether that's a gazebo or some type of shelter structure. Could be a shade sail structure. And delineating, that we could put curb stops to help with parking, just delineate parking spaces. There would be something with minimal effort that would help. The waterless restroom, again, I think could be a nice addition to those facilities, particularly at the access areas. The dog park at Scotch Bonnet. Before we start developing Scotch Bonnet, the park property, you do need to have a master plan for that. You need to vet that out, determine what makes sense there, where it needs to go. Do we have adequate parking there and comfort facilities? So there's a number of opportunities that need to be vetted out, and I do think a master plan would help with that. And that's also going to help you with potential grant applications in the future. Shading at seating, we talk about that at Scotch Bonnet, but that needs to be everywhere, and parking. Develop trails between Drew Griffin Environmental, skipped too fast on my slide. Drew Griffin Environmental Research Facility in Scotch Bonnet. Some more priorities. Fishing pier at Halstead. Just the information we mentioned at Halstead. I want to go through these a little bit quicker for the sake of time. Parking. The bike lanes on Ocean Boulevard, that's already in progress, and I think that'll be a nice addition. The wayfinding, the waterless restrooms, and signage. And I went through those pretty quick, but I think you guys have thoroughly read through that. I'd like to address any questions or any comments you might have. If there's something that I didn't touch on enough, or something you may not have understood why we're proposing some type of recommendation, I'll be glad to try to address those.
Just one thing before questions. On the list of focus groups, there's a lot of incomplete information on the participant names, at least on the copy that we have.
Right.
And I think for those that gave us their time, it would be nice to have.
And we have some of those that we coordinated with Christie. It's being added, if not added already.
Thank you.
Thank you. And those were great focus group meetings. We had some really good discussion.
I don't have any questions about what you proposed. I have questions about what's in the document. And I don't know whether we want to just jump in and kind of give you some of those.
Yeah, if you'd like to add some.
Okay. On page 11, it concerned me that you listed like Holden Beach Water Sport, but you did those rentals, but you didn't put, the beach fun rentals and the boomers rental, which are very close by. So I think you need to be careful if we're going to get a list.
Make it comprehensive.
It needs to be comprehensive because we partner with a lot of folks here, and I think they need to be included, particularly those that are close by.
Right. That's on page 11, right?
Right, page
Sure.
11 of my document. And you've got Lockwood Folly twice, but that's kind of picky stuff.
Okay.
This is just a question, but I was questioning a little bit about why we had Fort Fisher and Carolina Beach, because they're so far away. I know you go by ferry, and you have those two, but not the aquarium, which is right there. So again, I guess I know there were some people that said they did go to some of the state parks. So I guess that, but we need to make that, again, that pretty.
We can add the aquarium there. I think particularly if you're traveling out of state and you're going to spend a whole week here and you're trying to find something for kids to do, it's kind of it is an experience to get on the ferry and,
Right, but I mean, the aquarium would be a big attraction if you've got kids.
Right.
I mean, even going into the, Wilmington to the, Battleship, I mean, that's as close as going to Carolina Beach or Fort Fisher. So
Correct.
I don't know if you can do an exclusive list, but you kind of start listing some things and leave some big things out. The other thing, and I've got some other just nitty-picky stuff, but you describe the community involvement much better in your slide than you did this in documents starting on page 33. We didn't have 2 public meetings. I mean, you describe it in your slide as open meetings or something like that, but we did not have 2 public meetings, as you referenced in this document.
I would say public engagement activities.
Right. So that needs to be described as how you did that.
Right.
Because we didn't have we're in COVID, we didn't have public meetings here. So you did a great process, you just don't describe it in this document.
Yeah, we can elaborate on that.
Well,
That's
yeah.
right.
Because I think that describing that, and people that look at grants and score them, I think they need to get the better picture of that.
And we, it was pretty, I don't want to say entertaining, it was effort, but what we did, we, particularly on the day two, where we went to beach access points, we kind of saturated and did all we could at each location. Once we felt like we met as many of the masses for the time, then we would go to another one.
Yeah, but that's just a great process, but you don't describe it
Yeah,
as
we
such.
can elaborate on that.
And the other thing you don't put in this document on page 23 is you had a great slide of the focus group interviews, the groups that they had. You didn't mention that at all. You just said go to Appendix D, which is all that detail. But again, we took a lot of time to do those focus groups. So what you presented on your slide needs to be, I think, in this document
Okay.
rather than the verbiage
Sure.
that you've got there. And we don't have a return rate on the completed surveys, do we? We had 350 completed surveys returned, but how many were sent? We don't have a return rate on that. People often ask that. I don't know that you can do that. Because of the way the surveys were sent out, you may not know how many surveys were sent.
I'll
'Cause I think
touch on that.
you sent out postcards and all kinds of things, so it may be not possible to do a
Most
return
of it was
rate.
online.
Yeah. So the return rate might not be possible because it was a
Right.
mixture of folks,
Right.
their
I'm-
own homes.
I think we did have over 20% response rate, which is actually pretty good.
Okay, so there needs to be that, I think that in this document, if they're gonna go after grants, needs to be stated. I mean, that's what a lot of grant people look for, is what the response rate was and what the survey looked like.
Right, right.
They just get all over that, so I think that's an important, bit of information. And again, something really picky, and I can't find it here, but you mentioned, y'all listed the bike trail as parkland, 20 miles, 20 acres, or 20-something?
Not all the bike trails. Some of the
Yeah.
bike route would go
Yeah.
through
No,
some
you listed
town
that
on
under
land.
existing facilities.
Okay.
Large percentage of
Yeah,
land use.
right, and I mean, just personally, and that, this is just a suggestion, I don't consider that route is 20 miles
Which page?
on 50.
50, okay, we'll revisit
You
that.
said we had, 25.25 acres. And I guess we do, but I don't know whether that needs to be a linear park, but
Okay.
it's really just a road, right?
Yeah, I'll touch on that and
Yeah.
elaborate and clarify that.
Yeah, I mean, it's miles and it's linear, but it's just a
Right.
road.
It may have been when you know, if you have a trail going from, a mile long, but it's on a 300-acre piece of property,
Right,
but yeah, we can clarify that.
yeah. I'll hush for a minute and let somebody else talk.
You gotta stay on your toes when you have retired recreational.
And maybe I need a
Folks.
little clarification, and then I'm gonna let John and y'all hold it, but it seemed like to me on recommendations, there's a lot of items that fall under signage and maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where that falls under the responsibility of the town. I would think maintenance would be an entirely different budget line if we're talking about repaving or just general maintenance of the parks, mulch or trimming or cleaning up. But I saw that repeated.
Right.
Signage and maintenance.
Right. And that's a great comment. Some recreation departments handle everything. They handle, depends on the size of the community, but they may handle all of their, if you have a CIP, capital improvements plan for a recreation department, they have parking areas and so forth, they'll include it in their capital improvements plan. Otherwise, it just gets lost. So that's why it's sometimes included there. Other communities Public Works may handle all of that. So I guess to make sure it's in there, that's why we included it. If we feel like we need to take that off and just have one recommendation, that's fine, but if this is in the recreation department and the recreation department goes year by year to say, hey, what do we need to do, then we can have that included in the long-term 10-year CIP.
And there was a lot of discussion, and I don't know how aware you are of the current events for the town and the commissioners, But parking and pier purchase are in discussion and in planning phases. So I'm not so sure that that needs to be, it seems to be a strong focus about purchasing the pier. There's discussion right now by the
Okay.
commissioners to do that.
Okay.
Also parking, there's a huge discussion in a subcommittee that are dealing with all of that. And you talked about like over at Bridgewater Park, where some of the parks needing lines and
Right.
more delineated parking spaces. I
Right.
think if we end up going the route that we made that's being discussed, that's gonna happen on its own anyhow.
Mhm.
So
Well-
I think we're overlapping with some other town business on those two
Well,
topics.
if there is, let's say there's an opportunity for, and I don't know what all the business is, but we saw it as an opportunity. If there is an opportunity for the town to apply for grants for any kind of development, it's good to have that in your plan.
Okay. Can I just say one thing about the future dog park? On page 68, you say this site and 7 other locations are being recommended, and we only see like 3 of them?
I would say we considered, that probably need to be evaluated.
Okay. Personally, with where you've got 2 of them recommended, on those little strips in between houses, they're in the middle of residential. I don't want people jumping all over, about a recreation plan that goes out with these 2 sites. They may need to be moved to appendix or something, but that's just gonna cause, this plan needs to be well received by the community.
Right.
And Christie and them can decide what they want in this plan, but I think that's gonna be a lightning rod.
So here, you're the Recreation Advisory Board,
Yeah.
and I would suggest, say, Mike, you're limited on opportunities.
Right.
And if we feel like Scotch Bonnet is the gym where a dog park needs to be, and that's all that needs to be there, then say, Mike, that's where we feel like it needs to be, and we could say we've evaluated other town-owned lands, and we don't feel like those are appropriate.
You know, my issue with the Scotch
Yeah.
Bonnet place though is, all along now, we've been told that was the only place for dredge materials to get dumped. So, looking forward, why would we want to develop an area in there again, spend money and spend brain power to design it the way we want, if in fact it is the only area where spoils can be dumped, then we would rule it out really quickly, I think. I've been talking with David about that for a long time, and it's the answer we always get is, nope, that's the only place we could put it. We didn't have a choice, so that situation might happen again, in my opinion.
Yeah, because at first I thought, I was gonna say, I always thought Scotch Bonnet Park was a park. Pulled out a commission to put dredge on there and not a future park. But I'm fairly new to this, so I'm assuming that it was a park, no longer a park, and maybe a future park. So I think your comment is correct. Again, this may be something that is the town looks at this document, is Scotch Bonnet even realistic to develop?
It had 3 prior uses. It was laid out as the dog park was there. It was Public Works' lay down yard facility, and it served as a FEMA site for if we had a bad storm and needed to have a space to hold for disposal. That was a site that could be used that was approved. But as far as your question about if any other type of park facilities were there before, no, it was just the dog park
So just the dog park? you
and
put-
open space.
Okay, so,
I have another concern, and I'll send you my notes and files, because I've got a million comments, everything from editorial to, oh, no, take that out kind of stuff. But one of the key concerns I have is I'd like to see a little more time spent in defining what the populations are that this plan needs to address and needs to serve, and what their different requirements are, because I think they're real different. For instance, a big piece of the plan in early discussion is talking about population growth on Holden Beach as projected from the county and so forth. We're limited in how many lots we have here and so forth. And, you know, if the county grows, you know, 200%, Holden Beach is not gonna grow 200% because you
Right.
don't have,
Right,
you don't have the space.
right.
It's gonna be limited. Other pieces, I think, are really part of the justifications aren't, don't hold water because they relate to how having some of these things like the multi-use paths would enhance the business and commercial activity on the island. And, you know, there isn't much
Mhm.
on the island. And
Right.
so, you know, building a nice trail, which I think is a great idea, but building a trail is not gonna, you know, allow a bunch of little shops to pop up along the edges because of zoning here. So I don't think those are legitimate
So,
arguments or.
well, I guess the recommendation you stand behind.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think-
Well, that's
I
the
have no
good part.
problem with tying in
Yeah.
a nice walking thing. There's one I saw in there didn't like where you have people walking across the base of the bridge down here. That has to be taken out. But I got stuff like that I've
Yeah.
marked. But I'd like to see something that says, okay, we got 2 or 3 or maybe 4 different populations. One of them is we have full-time residents, we have second homeowners and their renters. We have day trippers, and I guess in with the day trippers, you would have a category of people who are coming on vacation and renting on that side as opposed to this side. And all the stuff you mentioned about the growth of Brunswick County and the state, everything, I think is very real. And I think it affects those numbers. I don't think it affects the Holden Beach number, which puts us in the unique position of having to enact and find funding for a lot of things that aren't, you know, owner island related stuff. We still gotta deal with it.
Yeah, I
don't
guess,
think that's clear enough in the
So-
plan.
and you can probably predict the development. You know what's here now, and we know potentially how much growth can occur, you know, to a.
And I agree, but even that growth, and my guess, the on island population that we're talking about, I think that's insignificant in comparison to the outside pressure.
Right.
Brunswick County grew 30-something% since the last census.
Right.
And of that growth, over 34%, I think, or something like that, was 65 and over.
Right.
And they predicted another 15 years or something, there's gonna be a huge population of, you know, 80-year-olds running around. So, I think a lot of this stuff, you had in there adult, you know, activities and things.
Right.
You know, that's true too, but all the grandkids are coming as well. But
Right.
anyway, I just think it's a unique situation.
It is unique. I guess I look at, well, so, again, coming back to the recreation, or the recommendations, and how do those recommendations that we're proposing, are they dramatically changed, or are they reduced, are they eliminated, are they expanded upon based on the full-time and second homeowner? That we can pretty much define. The question that's probably more volatile are day trippers and those that visit the island that are staying a week, but they're not staying on the island. Maybe they're at a campground or something. And those are the things that are probably not going down. They're probably going to come up, whether we like it or not. There's going to be more and more folks visiting the island. They may turn around and go back, but you know, that's something that is going to be hard to put a number on.
I agree, but I think we gotta define that, what those differences are
Right. Right.
in the document as a master plan.
So,
And I don't think it negates your recommendations
Okay.
or the other plans, because the non-resident people who come here, you know, still have to get onto the beach, and they have to have restroom facilities on
Right.
the beach,
Right.
and, you know, a place to park and so forth.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, I think those are key, and if you look, I thought it was real interesting. If you look through some of the, I forget, I've got it marked in there, question 19 or something, which was a free-for-all kind of place for comments. There were a whole lot of people in there who said, why are you guys messing around with all this stuff? You know, we're here to go to the beach.
Mhm.
And I, you know, I think that there's a lot of truth to that. You don't want to.
There is. You know, we do have comments like that, from the public activities we had. You know, there's some are, you know, there's 85% wanting to expand. So, you know, there's two different sides there. And so we're trying to weigh out. I think the recommendations, there's not any, there are a few bold recommendations, but there are a lot that are enhancing what we have. I do think walking trails expanded is going to be something that will be a challenge over time to implement, but I still think there's going to be demand for that.
I think, yeah, but I'm not trying to be critical of the plans. I think you got a lot of good stuff in there.
Well, and what I want to do is make sure, though, that, you know, we can definitely elaborate on some of these sections and further define, and I think that's great to, you know, how was the public activity? But also, I want to make sure, though, that the recommendations that we're putting here, you feel, you know, from the spirit of this document, say, you know, I can agree with these. Let's touch on, elaborate, fix some of these things, but we feel the spirit of the document is there, what we want to do, and committed to that.
Well, the recommendations give them a lot of opportunities. You know, over the next 10 years, you don't quite know what grant will come along or what you want to do. And so you have given them a broad base of ideas and things that they can address.
Right.
And none of those are inappropriate completely. So I think from that standpoint, you have certainly touched on things that are reasonable and not out of a realm of possibility. And if it's in the master plan, it's easier to justify why they're including it in an item for grants or any other document they want to do.
And there's some low-hanging fruit in here, and that's, you know, the things that we can go ahead and Christie's a great taskmaster. I'm sure she'll have most of that done in month 3. And so after that's completed, being facetious, but there are some things that signage and parking, some other things, they're going to require some thought, some process to make sure this resonates, this is what we want to do. But I appreciate those comments and be glad to, you know, if you email me some additional things, I can definitely touch on those as well.
So Mike, I'm not the grant person that my co-part here is.
Right,
but,
right.
I question whether the survey sample was ample enough, as well as the interview sample board. You know, we used interview boards. You know, it was Easter weekend, but, you know, I'm thinking, would we not get better input had we waited till after Memorial Day to get some of this information? And also, I mean, like concerts. On Sunday night, we've got people that are renters, owners, full-time residents, day trippers. I mean, to me, that would be a huge sample. And what I didn't see, and Candace alluded to this a minute ago, there's a lot of great information that was in this focus group, and I would love to see that pulled together, you know, some way or another, that you could develop some kind of spreadsheet or chart that says, this was a recommendation of all of the focus
Okay.
groups, or this was recommended by 90% of the focus groups.
Okay.
Just because this is kind of thrown in at the end, like Candace alluded to.
We can elaborate on that from, and that's a valid comment on the community input. I would say your survey is pretty good. I think you'll probably only reinforce what we've already seen. It's probably just going to be more numbers saying the same thing. And I still think you're, although you could possibly get more numbers right now, you could stretch it out for a year and do, 10 more public meetings. Based on the other communities we work with on the coast, these are the same, very much the same. You might see pickleball come up a little higher in some areas, and you could still go to a concert. You're going to get a lot more out-of-town folks likely at a concert. And we've done those before, and folks, more than half were from out of town or, from another coastal community. But I really do think this preference survey reflects a lot of what you're going to hear even at future meetings. And I was pretty excited with the turnout that we did have. But it's a valid comment, though, a good question.
One point that stuck out to me and I went, on was real early in the document when you're looking at age distribution.
Yeah.
It says that we have like 230-something school-age kids living on the island. All I ever see is an empty school bus. I was very surprised with that.
All you see is what?
I said I was very surprised with that number that we had 230-something full-time resident school-age kids.
You didn't see a lot of them because I guess they were all at home over the past year.
Uh,
They were all at home over the past year. That we didn't see a lot of them out and about. But that just came from the census data we pulled up. But yeah, that's higher than what I thought it would be. Anything else? Some really good feedback, and it's good. I'm glad you went through the document. Not everyone does that, so it's.
So should we submit our comments and edits and so forth to Christie?
If you want to do that, yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. And thank you so much.
Anything else? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Hey, John, can I have one more go? I'm not gonna take but a minute, but I need to go back to something about facilities, because I think it plays into something that Mike said about seating at some places. I just wanted to point out that, here as of late, we've had a lot of people, and I say a lot of people, we've had probably 6 or 7 families to email, and they want to do memorial benches for our parks, which really help with the cost that we have to spend, because not everybody understands that those commercial grade benches are between $600 and $800 for us to put out benches that will last in this environment. And we have had 2 that were placed by our Public Works Department this week, where 2 families have donated beach seating to Sailfish Park. One was also donated previously up at the boat that was put in, the little garden boat. And so I just wanted to point out that we do have people doing that, and it does help the town's budget. And I think that anytime we can incorporate something like that.
Great. Okay.
Do we need to just establish next steps, and are we going to, as a group, collaboratively look at the plan? We're going to submit to Christie. Should we come back at some point in time? I mean, I don't, to have a consensus from this group that we agree that these are priorities based on what we're seeing on the document. I mean, I don't think we're ready to just thumbs up this yet. So I don't know, I'm asking where we need to go next.
I can try to give some guidance, and Mike, you can jump in here. I spoke to David, and this was supposed to go before the commissioner for a final in July, with feedback from folks that will probably be pushed to August. So, unless McGill has some conflict that won't allow that, I think that you would have an opportunity to present them